Hi, welcome back to Free for All Friday on Focal Point. Brian Fisher is my name. Congenial, convivial, and amiable as always. Number to call. Talk about anything you want to talk about that's been in the news the past week, something that we've covered here or something that's been in the news in this past week. 888-589-8840. 888-589-8840. I want to get to this stuff about Benghazi, the CIA cover-up here in just a second. But I got a couple of culture stories here. Jeff, how about playing that? We got that Louis Armstrong thing there. Let's play that.
I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
You know how he says world? It says wild. What a wonderful wild. Anyway, it is a wonderful world out there, and we can appreciate that because it gives us something to talk about here on Focal Point. Here's a story out of Kansas about a town that's putting up these warning signs about flooding. And they have been ordered by the federal government under pain of having their funding cut to actually misspell words on the warning sign. They are not allowed to punctuate them correctly. The warning message on this sign is when flooded, turn around, don't drown. Now, don't requires an apostrophe. Now, when you got Ted Cruz and his don'tfundobamacare.com, that's okay because that's a website address. You can't use it. But this is a road sign. And the federal government saying, if you put the apostrophe in there, you're not getting any money from us. You have to misspell that. We've got something called a manual on uniform traffic control devices, which is administered by the FAA, the Federal Highway Administration. So they got money to give out. So they're ordering this town in Kansas, Wichita, to misspell their warning signs under the threat of having their funding cut off. Now, I told you when I went to San Francisco, crossed an item off my bucket list, saw some Giants games with my son in AT&T Park. Great experience, fabulous venue for baseball. One of the issues there that I talked with you about is they have these seagulls. It's right on the San Francisco Bay. That's what makes it such a spectacular setting. But they got these seagulls flying all over the park, and they've got a problem because these seagulls are doing what seagulls do, and it's landing in people's hair, and it's landing on their faces. So they're trying to figure out what to do about this stuff. And then I came across this story, Associated Press. This is in New York, where people are actually using bird droppings. I'm not making this up. They're using bird droppings for beautification purposes. This is at a Manhattan luxury spa. They've got this fancy pants facial, $180 a pop. And the secret ingredient is bird droppings. This is at the Shakusa New York Skincare Salon, where the traditional Japanese treatment using imported Asian nightingale excrement mixed with rice bran goes for $180 a pop. And people are swearing by this thing, smearing it on their faces. And they're paying $180 to have people paint their faces with this stuff. 100 women and men a month get this treatment at this spa. So maybe there is, maybe that's how they can advertise it at AT&T Park. Hey, come to AT&T Park, watch a ball game, get a free facial treatment on us. Now, let's see, one last thing. A common misconception, however, according to the Associated Press, is that any old bird droppings, even from pigeons, is used. But Bernstein says only droppings from birds of the nightingale species are used because they live on seeds producing the natural enzyme that is the active ingredient. We don't do Central Park facial, she says, because those birds eat garbage. So can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? We live in a world where people actually have standards about which kind of bird droppings are going to allow people to smear on their faces. It is indeed a wonderful world. From Colorado, Colorado just legalized Colorado just legalized marijuana use. They've got a huge problem there with illegal marijuana exports because the states around them, like Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Texas, it's not legal in their states. So these people are making bank shipping this marijuana out of state, and the amount has been quadrupling in the past few years. This is a report written by the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, a network of law enforcement organizations. And it's based on data gathered by the Department of Justice's El Paso Intelligence Center, coming right out of the DOJ. Now, this is interesting because this is the memo to Rand Paul. Remember, Rand Paul's a libertarian when it comes to marijuana, to policies, public policy that restricts the sale, consumption of marijuana. He's a whatever floats your boat. In addition to the marijuana seizure statistics, the report includes data on adult and teen use of marijuana, emergency room visits, and fatal crashes related to marijuana. The report found increased levels in all these groups. And this doesn't even include 2013, this last year when marijuana became legal for recreational use in the state of Colorado. And we know from studies that have been done in other places, when marijuana use is legalized, even if there's age restrictions on it, marijuana usage spikes among teenagers. And we've talked about this before. Marijuana use, especially if you start in your teenage years and you're a heavy user, it rots your brain. It actually damages the brain. It damages your IQ. It damages your long-term ability to remember things. Your long-term memory is affected by marijuana use. So it's just bad business. And you know, this is the DOJ. They are saying, look, what we're finding in Colorado is more teen use of marijuana since, and this is even before it got legalized. That was already spiking, and that's the most dangerous cohort to have people using marijuana. Emergency room visits are up, and fatal crashes that are related to marijuana, they also are up. You know, Colorado's got a huge problem because right here, you know, you've got fatal crashes that are related to marijuana. And they've tried to figure out what the standard is. You know, we have a standard for alcohol. It's maybe 0.08 or in most places. And you blow 0.09 or, you know, 0.10, you're going to jail. That you're arrested. That's driving under the influence. Well, they're trying to get a similar level for marijuana, and they can't do it. They've tried 3 or 4 times, and they can't find a level because a lot of people that are using medical marijuana say, hey, I'm over that limit all the time. I walk around 24 hours a day over that limit. So they're having a real problem trying to dial that in. Well, let's go to the phones, 888-589-8840, free for all Friday. Let's begin with Matt in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Matt, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Hey, Brian. You know, Obama, I've been just hearing things on the news, and it seems like, you know, they're always upset because he's saying, I'm going to use all the power I can to make things go through, and that's not his position. He kind of goes against the law. It goes through Congress, and it goes through stages according to the law. And so he just abuses his power, seems like constantly, to get his way. And I was just wondering if anybody, you know, he was a lawyer for so long. I was just wondering if his track record as a lawyer before he became president showed that he abused the law. I know lawyers are paid liars, and they get paid a lot of money to lie, but I wondered if he just abused that power working with the law back in the day. That should have gave us a big heads up how he'd be as a president.
Well, you know, here's the secret. The dirty little secret about President Obama, Matt. I don't think he's ever practiced law. I don't know that he's ever actually practiced law, that he's ever actually been in a courtroom, that he's actually done legal work. You know, he went through Harvard Law, or I guess it was Harvard Law. Went through Harvard Law, became editor of the Law Review, largely based on the color of his skin. Didn't do any work as the editor of the Law Review. All the stuff was done by other people. And he even did very little work to edit any of this stuff. But he get credit for it, his name on the Harvard Law Review. Then he gets hired by a law firm, and he spends all of his time while he's working in that law firm with his feet up on his desk working on his autobiography. He didn't do any legal work for them. And then he became a community activist, community agitator, and then he ran for the state legislature. You know, he fancies himself something of a constitutional lawyer, but I don't think he has clue one about the Constitution. He's never really actually practiced law. He's just a community agitator by trade. But, you know, you've got a real concern. I mean, just right now, Matt, this happened just yesterday. We talked about this yesterday, that according to Obamacare, I just call it Chernobyl care because it's total meltdown. But according to Chernobyl care, Congress and their aides have to be on Obamacare. They have to get their insurance the same way you and I do through one of these exchanges. If it's not provided by a private employer, you've got to get it through one of these exchanges. And that was by design so that Congress would have to live on the same rules that they're going to force us to choke on. And there was no provision in the law, none, zero, for taxpayers to fund premiums for congressmen and their aides. And they were screaming and moaning and complaining. And realize there is no statutory authority in Obamacare, 2,700 pages, and they left this out. They never made any provision for taxpayers like you and me to provide funds for congressmen and their aides to be subsidized for their purchase of health care. That doesn't stop Obama. He just directs his Office of Personnel Management. This is a story on Politico this morning. Office of Personnel Management, under heavy pressure from Capitol Hill, will issue a ruling that says the government can continue to make a contribution to the health care premiums. The Office of Personnel Management cannot do this. The Office of Personnel Management has no statutory authority whatsoever to rewrite or to amend law. They don't. But President Obama just tells them to go right ahead and do it. And Politico is honest enough to say the problem here was rooted in the original text of the Affordable Care Act. Chuck Grassley inserted a provision which said members of Congress and their aides must be covered by plans created by the law or offered through an exchange, but there was no authorization for taxpayer-funded subsidies. There were discussions of a legislative fix attaching language to a must-pass bill to fix the problem. In other words, actually do it the correct way, but that would have been too difficult in today's paralyzed Washington, so they just ignored the Constitution, ignored the law, and ordered it to be done. Focal Point and AFR Talk.